Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Toilets and Titles, and welcome back to the Jacksonville Jaguars offseason breakdown bonus episode. This is the third year now in a row of me doing those offseason breakdowns. Fortunately, I've been able to do the Jaguars for all three. The first couple of years, I didn't get through all 32, but this year I've got some help from some of the guys on the team. We have a much larger team, and we are definitely going to be able to get it out. The first year I did this by myself, and it was an absolute disaster because I don't follow the team. I don't know the team. Fortunately, I'm able to bring on a couple of awesome guests that do know the team inside and out. One of them because he writes about them all the time, and the other one just because he's kind of obsessed. But that's okay. That's what we do. That's what we do. And full disclosure, guys, I'm a Colts fan, but I promise my Colts fandom stays right here in my living room. I'm not going to put it out there. No negative vibes, no bad energy, only if it comes from you guys. You guys are allowed to talk all the trash you want. I had my opportunity yesterday when we did the Colts episode. So, by the way, y'all can go back and check out that Colts episode too. Before I get into the introductions, please don't forget down there at the bottom, hit that like button, hit that subscribe for us, help us out. These episodes are live on several of our platforms, but we only leave it on YouTube. So it's kind of like a YouTube bonus episode there. So if you're watching this now, please help us out. Patreon.com/toilets to titles. And it's like I say every time, you'd be surprised on every single platform. You just type in the search toilets to titles. It's actually available there for us. So we didn't even have to find anybody for it. So, and then of course, toiletsandtitles.com. All right. Oh, and new on TikTok, by the way. I'm actually trying to learn this TikTok stuff. All right. So enough of that crap. Let's get into the real guest here. We got Demetrius Harvey at Demetrius82. He's editor for Sports Illustrated, the All Gators. He likes them Gators. He likes them Gators. But he writes about more than just the Gators. He writes about the Jaguars at Big Cat Country. And I've actually noticed a couple of articles of other things as well. You don't just solely talk about the Jaguars and Gators, do you, Demetrius?
Yeah, I mean, I'll dive into the ongoings of the NFL or whatever it may be, depending on if it has sort of a correlation to the Jaguars or anything like that. Because obviously, NFL fans want more content than just Jacksonville Jaguars content, and some Jaguar fans want to know what's ongoing. So I'll just give them articles about maybe Trevor Lawrence has a new Gatorade bottle, things like that. Maybe the Jaguars are doing some incentive. So just little things like that, of course, I'll always touch on.
And what are you working on right now? Or is there anything that we need to be looking for coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I keep saying this on like different broadcasts or whatever, but I'm still working on an article about how the Jaguars are sort of moving to a new linebacker room. I mean, brand new because of in the past they had a lot more of a old school sort of room, and now they're moving to a more fast paced sort of revolutionized linebacker room. So I'm just going to do something on that with quotes from the guys and Mike Caldwell, Devin Lloyd, all those guys. So should be coming soon-ish, but I won't put a date on it.
Yeah, yep, no problem. We'll keep our eye out for it. And if you DM me that article when it does post, I'll make sure to send it out to our guys.
Perfect.
All right, Jesse Schuster, no relation to Juju, I assume.
No relation, unfortunately.
All right, unfortunately, it'd be nice to get some of those Kansas City tickets, right? Yeah, especially since you might notice up here, I've got the schedule behind. You guys do play Kansas City this year, but at Jack's Commish, this guy is a commish for many leagues, but you can find him on Twitter at Jack's Commish. And like I said, like it says down there, this is the guy that's just kind of obsessed with the team, like I am with my Colts. So thank you very much for coming on, Jesse. How's it going today?
Good, man. Good. I haven't been writing as much as I used to in the past few years. I was writing for Hammercast Network. They kind of fell apart and dissipated. So kind of like a freelance writer, I guess you'd say. Right now, you saw, if you follow me, doing a How to Be a Great Commish 50 days in a row. I've been posting something every day, and then I'll put that together in a big article. Kind of gives you some tips to help your leagues out, kind of helps fantasy as a whole to get things going. And as a Jaguar fan since 2001, I mean, I've done quite a bit with the team. My wife and I were the ultimate fan at one point. We ran the team on when they played the Patriots a few years ago. My son was actually the child that they used for the Jaguars season release when they did that 1 year a few years ago. You know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been in it for quite a bit with my Jaguars here, and I can't wait to do this with y'all. Demetrius, is glad to see you on here. I follow
Appreciate
Big Cat Country quite a bit, so I've read many of your articles and many of the Big Cat Country's articles as well.
Awesome. I appreciate it, man.
Right on. That's awesome, man. I absolutely love when that happens. It just kind of falls in place sometimes.
Yeah,
so
definitely. I was very excited to see that we got Demetrius on here. So that's why I flew home, not even worried about the speed limit today.
Right on. Well, hey, just a heads up. Once you have come on to a Toyless Title show, you're always kind of a part of the family here. So if you want it, you're more than welcome to continue to remain being that distant cousin at the reunion that nobody ever messes with. But if you need a platform to write any of your articles on, we do have a website. You're more than welcome to shoot it to us. We'll post it and we'll get it on there for you, just to give you an outlet for it. That's entirely up to you. We can talk about that more later. Right now, the people don't want to hear all that behind the scenes crap. They want to hear about the Jacksonville Jaguars. And guys, last year's episode blew up on us. It was a great episode. I know I kind of keep overhyping it, but I don't think that this is going to be a letdown because the Jaguars fans are for real, like absolutely for real. So that's one thing that will always be a constant in that community. So I'm going to get right to it and just start asking questions about the team and the position that intrigues me the most, because I'm more of a fantasy football guy than a traditional football guy, and I'm more of an offensive guy and a redraft guy. So that means I'm paying closer attention to the skill positions on offense more than anything. So the position that I'm more interested to hear about is that backfield, and in the AFC South, you've got Jonathan Taylor and you've got Derrick Henry, so you've got some big name guys there. But I would argue to say that Jacksonville backfield as a whole, as a team, has every bit of talent to keep up with the rest of that conference or the rest of that division and possibly conference just by talent alone. So what I want to know, with our guy Travis Etienne, is he fully healthy, sort of healthy? Is he going to take over that starting role? Like what does that backfield look like to you? Demetrius, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously Travis Etienne had an awful injury, a Liz Frank, which typically, especially for a guy with his explosion, his speed, that's going to dominate and sort of become a very big negative for him in his future. So, it's taken about a year for him to get recovered from that. It still hasn't even been a year since that date, but so far so good. It seems like, when we first talked to him at around, I would say maybe January or February, whatever date that was, he was around 80%. Now it seems like he's closer to 100. He's definitely, back in terms of his speed, his quickness, his agility. I've seen plenty of videos on social media where he's cutting. I wasn't able to personally get to see him up close and personal during the OTAs since I was out of the state, but I was able to, obviously talk to coaches and everything, and everybody seems overly positive about him. He's a guy from Clemson that is supposed to be the next big thing. When he first came out, obviously, people don't like to draft running backs in the first round, but if there was a running back you were going to draft in the first round, it would have been him, and then obviously Harris, who went to Pittsburgh. So I think he's on the right track. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I can't really speak on his injury specifically, but it really does look like he's making good strides, and I'm interested to see how big of a role he's going to play this year.
Yeah, I like your points there with that Liz Frank injury. I'm no doctor either, but I did marry a doctor, so I do like to pick her brain quite often. And it looks like, with running backs, the Liz Frank injury is something that is a concern somewhat. We can't just let it gloss over. But like you said, he's back to 100%. It's not like he did it in his year 5 or later on. He did it year 1, very early in year 1. So he's got plenty of tire left, or tread on the tire left, so to speak. And I think what people tend to forget is him and Trevor were roommates at one point. And, it wasn't just they were on the same team. They were actually roommates, and they talk about the Stafford and Cup connection just because they're eating breakfast every day. Well, these guys actually lived together in the same room for many years in college. So that's got to be a bonus, or it's got to be something that we give a little bump up here. And to me, I think Travis Etienne is going to be that guy. And especially in the fantasy world, I think it kind of separates himself because he does have that receiving ability. If you remember, in NCAA, he was crushing it. I mean, I think he led all running backs in receptions and was second receptions and led all running backs in receiving yards. So the potential is there, and the ceiling is extremely high for him. And that's what I think a lot of people are loving, and that's why I think they're kind of drafting him a little bit higher in drafts right now, and he's kind of skyrocketing up the ADP preseason right now. You still have to remember also that you've got James Robinson there, who is. I've seen some video, Demetrius. I know you've seen some video of him actually running now, so it's not like he's that far off from where we thought we would be. You talk about his injury, and most people were thinking it's not going to be until November or later that he's coming back, but it seems like nowadays with the future of medicine, I think that he can come back a little bit quicker. And for me, I think that 1-2 combo is deadly. I mean, if we can get it back going, we've got Snoop Connor back there, who's a violent runner who can vulture some touchdowns, take some of those first and second down carries, and keep Travis Etienne healthy the entire year. We're looking at a nice stable for us in Jacksonville for a few years here to come because they're all young.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just to add to that, sort of, with James Robinson, the Achilles injury, they couldn't really catch a break last year. That's probably one of the worst, injuries you can get for a running back or any skill position. Obviously, when that happens, you sort of find yourself thinking, oh, well, that's it for that career. Obviously, it's going to impact James Robinson's return, and like you said, Jesse, he's already back running. He's already doing some things, which is a huge positive. And we've seen, dramatic returns from that sort of injury recently. I think Cam Akers with the Rams, he was able to come back in, I believe, 7 months. He ruptured his Achilles in around July, and I think he came back for the playoffs. So, it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible for James to get back on track by the time the season starts. I wouldn't anticipate him being back during the early portion of training camp. Absolutely not during the first couple of weeks of training camp. But as you get going, maybe during the last week of preseason and then into the regular season, you should see him get going. Also, just in terms of the running back room as a whole, whenever James does come back and whenever he is fully healthy, he's going to be their bell cow. I think the staff likes him a lot. I think that they still view him as that sort of back. But, like you said, Travis is such a phenomenal athlete, a phenomenal player, that it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. So it's going to be one of those situations where if Travis is just having a good day, you might not see James for a while. Or if James is having a great day, you might not see Travis. It should be that sort of 1-2 combo. But, it's just time will tell, because these are both dramatic injuries that, we haven't really seen play out on the gridiron.
Yeah, it sucks because coming out of that draft last year, we were like, "Holy cow, we've got the running back's not a problem. We don't have to worry about it towards the end of the season." And all of a sudden, running back became a problem very quickly for us after that Etienne injury. So I like where we're going. At least, I mean, we've got some pieces there. They're cheap. They're young. I mean, it helps.
For sure. And you do have, in case all is, worst case at the start of the season, you do still have Armstead that has a lot of experience in that offense and a lot of playing time in his own right, and an amazing talented rookie, Snoop Connor. I know he was higher on many draft boards than others, but for what it's worth, I think there's a lot of raw talent there that can really be that I think Jacksonville is the type of place that you want to go if you have that raw talent, because there's really no pressure to do well. I mean, I don't mean that as a put down. Like they don't you don't have huge high expectations to go out and win a Super Bowl this year, So you have that ability to learn and mold and get better. So if they can continue to hang on to that talent, you guys really do have such a young team. There's real potential there to be great in the near future. So I do want to mention real quick, just because he's an avid follower, I promise Chris, buddy, I'm going to comment to this in the comments after the show. This is the Jaguars episode, so we're only talking Jaguars. I know that that's fresh and new, but I'll comment in the comments for you, bud. But Joe Clark here does lead us into a nice little segue here. He's really looking forward to Trevor's second year. I think everybody is kind of like looking at this like a potential Peyton Manning thing, where we're all ready to just look past that first year and see what this team can do. Am I kind of hitting the nail on the head there?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing about Trevor's rookie season, and maybe we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the coaching staff, it really did have a very big negative impact for all the players, but including Trevor. When you think about a quarterback and then you think about a rookie quarterback, it sort of, lets you know the extent at which this can have a very big negative impact on you. You have a guy in Urban Meyer who, was the coach last season, who just simply couldn't get it done. He didn't remember names. He wasn't a very friendly person around the building, from what I've been told. He wasn't very approachable. He, called out his staff willy-nilly. And then to top it all off, obviously they were just not a very good team. So when you have a guy in charge, it's going to have a dramatic impact on your rookie quarterback. So you see Trevor only throw 12 touchdowns. You see him throw 17 interceptions. Every week was sort of, is Trevor going to have a decent game at least? And for most weeks, honestly, he did not. And it's not to say that he didn't have any good plays. He had plenty of promise. He showed plenty of promise last season. I mean, for me watching from above, I could see that there's obviously talent there. I mean, there's a reason why coming out of Clemson, he was thought to be a generational talent. He was thought to be the next Peyton Manning, the next John Elway, the next Andrew Luck, those type of players. It was because he has, such a high football IQ, such a great arm, accurate, can make all the throws. And you saw that last year as it went on. And then I think, to top it all off against the Colts, that final game, I think that might have been his best game of the season, if not, one of his best games of the season. And I think that, yeah, sadly for you.
He had a great game. He had a great game.
He had a very great game. But yeah, so, I mean, going into year two, you have all of the formula there. You have Doug Peterson. You have all of the good coaches that are surrounding him. Mike McCoy, who was a former head coach. You have Press Taylor, who, worked closely with Carson Wentz during his time in Philadelphia, during his, triumphant return. And he was Carson was a good quarterback at one point, believe it or not. And part of that was because of Doug Peterson and Press Taylor. So when you surround a guy like Trevor with those type of people, you can only think that it's going to go up. And especially after last season, I mean, there's not very much room for him to go down further. So to expect good things from him this year isn't a very big, guess or prediction. It's just something that should happen. I think that it will happen only because of what he showed last year and sort of his poise, his leadership, and then obviously all of the talent that he has.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I have in my notes here that the biggest offseason move for Trevor Lawrence, it wasn't bringing in Kirk. It wasn't bringing in Ingram or Jones or any of that. It was bringing in Doug Peterson. People forget that he is a quarterback guru. The guy not only played it in the NFL, he was a quarterback's coach for quite some time. He was with actually Michael Vick. He was with, KC. He was at KC when can't think of the name right now, but then what he did with Wentz as a head coach, they were 11. He was 11-2 at one point, and the Wentz was a 33-7 TD to interception ratio before blowing his knee out, and then thus leading Foles to the Super Bowl. But I mean, those are crazy stats and crazy numbers, and that was actually Wentz's second year as well. So what he can do with that quarterback and a young quarterback and one with such potential in Trevor Lawrence that we did not do last year is going to make that difference. Like Demetrius said, it's going to be light years ahead of where we were last year. Mm-hmm. And I don't really see. I feel like a lot of people don't see that coming, and I'm glad that they don't see that coming. So that when they get caught up and we sneak a few wins here this season because of it, it's because of Doug Peterson. It's not because of all these weapons they brought in. Because honestly, I don't think they're the best weapons, but I think that bringing in that coach, that head coach that can really be a quarterback coach and a quarterback friendly person will help in the long run. And you've seen that connection that both of them have made from both their comments when they do their interviews, and both of them talk very well about each other. And that just shows in itself. Whereas last year with Meyer would talk okay about Lawrence. Lawrence would talk okay about Meyer. You never felt that like love or that relationship that you need between a quarterback and a coach in order to succeed. I'm seeing that now. And just the little time offseason, the difference between Doug Peterson and Urban Meyer. And I think that's what's key in Trevor Lawrence's success this year.
Yeah, I think one big difference between Urban Meyer and Peterson is that I've never really considered Peterson to be a complete jerk, and I've always felt that Urban Meyer was. So, but I believe it was Alex Smith that you were thinking of.
Alex Smith, yes, Scott.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it was Alex Smith for sure. But two good quarterbacks that he was coaching for, under his wing. It's at one point Alex Smith and Michael Vick. I mean, he played quarterback behind Brett Favre. I mean, the guy's got a list of why he's going to be good at coaching quarterback. So right. I love what we did in getting him, honestly.
Absolutely. I agree. And I'm glad you guys hit on the coaches. That was one of the things we were going to talk about anyway. So now we're going to move on to some of you mentioned a couple of these names, the wide receivers. We do have also a comment here because this guy right here is my co-host for the main show, Toilets and Titles, the main show, and he's been a Visca fan since Visca was in college. He's all about the Visca. He bought the jersey, like he's a Dallas Cowboys fan, and he bought a Visca jersey. So so you got LaVisca Chenault there. You've got you got a lot of options. Now I want to try to squash something real quick. I'm gonna give you guys the opportunity to talk about your new wide receivers here. But everybody wants to give the Jaguars crap about all the millions and millions of dollars that they've spilled out on these contracts. But I just want to throw out some numbers real quick just so that everybody's aware. First off, the salary cap is crap, right? They may as well call it the salary crap. It doesn't mean anything in the NFL, all right? Secondly, the Jaguars are now paying 9.3% of their total cap space to their top three wide receivers. Okay, so even after all those millions of dollars, they're only giving 9.3% to their top three wide receivers when it comes to cap space. So if you are going to be concerned about the cap, there's a fact for you. There are 10 other teams besides the Jaguars that are paying their top three wide receivers right at 9.3% or more, in some cases much more, for their top three wide receivers. So from a team standpoint, it's not that bad of a deal. It's really not that horrible. And the biggest concern is if Kirk doesn't work out, you'll probably know it after the first year, and his whole contract isn't guaranteed. $37 million of it is, and then $18 million for this 1 year. So you're out, what, $55 million if it doesn't work out? Like, fine. Throw your darts at the guys you like. If it's your guy, so what? Go for it. It's just money. And in the NFL, when you're already trying to make yourself better, like, who cares? Throw those darts. So that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. How about you guys?
No, I mean, you're not wrong. And sort of a shameless plug right here, on my Twitter pinned up is basically everything you need to know about the salary cap. It explains every single little intricacy. It explains Christian Kirk's contract. Like you said, if he's not good in the past couple of in the next couple of years, he's not going to see the rest of that 5-year contract or 4-year contract, because they can basically just cut him and then, do whatever they want with the money afterward. But yeah, so with them going after a guy like Christian Kirk, basically what it boiled down to was there's only so many players that were available. I mean, Mike Williams had signed his contract before he hit free agency. Chris Godwin, I believe, was franchise tagged again. Devontae Adams, they were never going to be in that trade at all. So everybody was clamoring for them to trade for him. The one person that I believe they probably should have made the move for, but didn't, and probably could have if they wanted to, was Amari Cooper, who obviously was traded to the Browns. But beyond that, there really weren't that many wide receivers out there ready for the Jaguars to draft or to sign. Christian Kirk was basically the next best up, and I know that his numbers don't look great over the last few years with the Cardinals. I honestly think that he was a bit overpaid. I don't think anybody would question that at all. Maybe a lot overpaid. considering his past production. But what you're paying for basically is, hey, they need a wide receiver badly. He's a guy who excels out of the slot. I don't think that there's going to be any problem with him playing that position for Jacksonville. That's primarily where he will be playing. Last season they had a lot of mix and matches going. They tried Laviska Shenault in the slot. They tried Jamal Agnew out there at wide receiver when he was just supposed to be a kick returner. So, they had to bring in a guy, and I think that Kirk is somebody who can do that. Going to Shenault, who, your buddy is a big fan of. I was a huge fan of this guy coming out of Colorado. I mean, because growing up, I remember a guy, Anquan Bolden, and I might age myself here. I'm pretty young, but Anquan Bolden was one of the top wide receivers in the league, and he was just an amazing sort of wrecking ball out there, almost like a running back. And Shenault reminded me a lot of him. And going into his first year, his rookie season, he sort of showed that, because they put him at the running back position sometimes, and they were able to get a lot of production out of him, using him in various ways. Last season, he didn't catch a touchdown. He dropped a lot of passes. He was in a pretty bad offense. He was, not coached by the best wide receivers coach, in my opinion, a guy who wouldn't necessarily coach to his players, more coach, his style and hope his players adapt to it. I think that this year it should be a lot better with Chris Jackson. He's a guy that they expect a lot from, but at the same time, like, they went out and they signed a guy, Zay Jones, they signed Christian Kirk. They aren't expecting him to have to play that number one role in terms of Shenault. So maybe that's going to be a benefit for him too. The rest of the wide receiver group, with Zay Jones, who's another guy who hasn't really had much production. A lot of people, talk trash about not only his haircut, but also the, but also just the contract and things of that nature. I think they like him a lot. I know they like him a lot. And the reason being, I think, is they feel he's a guy who can be sort of a field stretcher on the outside. He has 4.4 speed. He's a guy who has had production when he's been called upon with the Raiders the last couple of years. He had production with the Bills for a time. That's why he was traded for value. He wasn't just cut and signed with the Raiders or anything like that. So, I'm not saying that he's going to be a phenomenal wide receiver at all. He's a guy that they sort of wanted to go out and see. The same thing is sort of said about Marvin Jones last year, except for he came with a lot of veteran presence, a lot of production in his past stops. And I think that he's a guy who, they're going to be counting on for a guy like Trevor Lawrence to be able to make that second year jump. So the wide receiver group is a lot of unknown, in my opinion, and it's probably one of the most, looked at position groups on the team for good reason. But I don't think that it's in dire straits as it was last year, just considering who they brought in, and then obviously the coaching staff too.
Yeah, and I think we also had, losing Chark early in the season didn't help us any. We were bringing in Tavon Austin, Laquan Treadwell. We were bringing in guys that, they've been around the block a lot. So it made it tough for that wide receiver room. I think when we lost Keenan McCardell as our wide receivers coach, I think that took a hit, Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things that added up to wide receivers not being successful. Like you said, coaching, injuries, just across the board, everything. There was a lot of things that made last year very unbearable. For me this year, I think, like you said, with that Kirk signing, there's a lot of stipulation into how they can maneuver that money and make it, the cap just not even matter. Look at the Rams. It's just like they just print their own money and don't even care about it. Same thing with us. We didn't print our own money, but we signed him because that was the only guy that was out there. Like you said, Devontae Adams was not coming here. He was going to a team that he knows he can go at least make an attempt at a Super Bowl. That is not Jacksonville right now. That is not where he wanted to go. Godwin was another guy that we wanted, but like you said, franchise tag. So it's funny to me, though, one thing I get from it when we do that signing is how funny we were able to get rid of one of the best wide receivers in our division in A.J. Brown and send him packing because we signed so much. He wanted more money. He wanted that Kirk money, and so he went to the Eagles, and we got him out of here. So that's kind of like a bonus by us signing Kirk at such a high price. So I kind of look at it like that. Like you said, if it doesn't pan out for him in year one, we can cut bait from it and not lose as much as everyone's thinking. It's not like it's 82 million like they look at, or 88 million is what they keep saying that we signed them for. It's not that. It is less per year. He's not really one of the top 10 even. I think he's top 12 maybe wide receiver paid. And like you said, that 9% across the board, the other wide receivers don't pay him that much. So it kind of averages out. It's nothing where it's going to hit our wallet. I kind of like what we did. We had to bring in somebody. And at that point in time, everybody was getting signed. We had to make a move. And we made the first move, and people just got angry at it because we made the first move, and it was a higher price than what other people thought. So,
yeah, there's something to be said about that as well. Jealousy can strike.
yes.
So, for sure. And not that they're jealous that they didn't get Kirk for that much money or whatever, but yeah, they were the first to make their move and they got their guy for sure. Real quick, I want to give some props to our new guy, Chuck Steele. He took over our Facebook account and he got 300 Facebook followers for us today.
Oh, wow.
300 today. So I don't know if this is one of the new Facebook users. I see your comment down there. He is now playing for the Detroit Lions.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what they were touching on there just momentarily. That's kind of what Jesse was talking about. And then let's see. I saw another comment here that we should get to. Oh, yeah, of course. Tight ends. You guys have Evan Ingram. A guy that had a great rookie season, a guy that started off as a flash on the field. Like the guy was everywhere and was a real heavy piece to that offense. He's had a lot of injuries, a lot of question marks. Some of those question marks are known as Daniel Jones. But now, just like this comment says, Joe's letting us know that your new head coach, Doug Peterson, loves to utilize his tight ends. And in his opinion, if he can stay healthy, you guys have a good tight end. Do you agree with that, Jesse?
Yes, I really do. I think that we can take not to say a used tight end, but a guy that's been in the league for a little bit. And like you said, he's had some struggle with Daniel Jones. But I think in a refreshed offense and a head coach that likes tight ends, we can really see him flourish. In the offseason OTAs or beginning here, he just looks good. He looks good. He looks smooth. He looks fast. He almost looks like a wide receiver, to be honest, a big wide receiver. It's not so much like a tight end like you'd picture. You also forget that we have Dan Arnold, who's going to be back. We've got that 2 tight end set. It kind of takes some pressure off the wide receivers. We said our wide receivers aren't fancy and explosive as some of these other teams are, but we've got a pass catching running back. We've got some tight ends that can catch now. So that will take the pressure off the wide receivers in the long run. But I love Evan Ingram this year. I've liked what I've seen so far in the short film that I have seen on him. And I think Doug Peterson's going to use him quite a bit. I think he could be a sleeper tight end for a lot of fantasy leagues in those redrafts or in best ball.
Yeah, I mean, I basically agree with that, with all of that. But the thing about Ingram is, and I think you sort of touched on it, Jesse, is that they view him as a guy who can play that wide receiver position as well. And it sort of touches on that last topic we were talking about, the group of receivers they have. They have the ability to flex him out wide, and I know that Doug Peterson has used that formula a lot with Zack Ertz, dating back to his time in Philly, obviously with Dallas Goedert for a short period of time when he was there still. And I think that's probably what they were thinking about when they went out and signed him. It wasn't a super long-term deal. It was a 1-year deal, I believe, for maybe around $8-9 million, something like that. It isn't anything expensive. But what they're trying to see is if they can sort of light a flame under him, because coming out of Ole Miss, I remember Evan Ingram was supposed to be the next big thing. He was going to be that next tight end to take the reins and become basically a Zack Ertz or, a tight end of that ilk. And I think that the reason is because of his amazing field stretching ability, his ability to, become a quarterback friendly player. It should be something to help Trevor Lawrence moving forward. Obviously, Doug Peterson does love tight ends. I think even in his first year or in that 2017 season, Zack Ertz led the team in catches and yards and touchdowns and all that. So, I mean, if there's any coach that's going to rely on the tight end position, it's going to be Doug Peterson. And they already traded for a guy, Dan Arnold. You already touched on him too. But, he was coming in and sort of expected to take the reins from James O'Shaughnessy, who, had some injury issues. They traded C.J. Henderson, in my opinion, probably the best trade they've made in quite some time. Probably since Blaine Gabbert, back in whenever that was 2015 or something. So that trade, They were able to get a third round pick and a guy in Dan Arnold who, in my opinion, would look to be one of their better offensive players before he did get hurt. So when you think about their tight end room now, Evan Ingram, Dan Arnold, Chris Manhertz, and then you have Luke Farrell and a couple other guys who are sort of at the bottom of the roster right now. I think that it's looking good. All it's going to take is them sort of staying healthy, and obviously the game planning will just come to its own. But for now, yeah, I think that they did a really good job of upgrading that room. Do they have room to improve? Of course, but if everything pans out the way they want it to, Evan Ingram is going to be a star in the Jacksonville offense.
And just real quick, just to answer this question for Coach Fry, because he is an avid listener as well, and in a couple of leagues with our guys. So, was it just because Chark was too expensive? Do you think that was really the big reason?
I mean, they signed him for 1 year, $10 million. So I don't think it was too expensive. I think they were just kind of, I don't know. He had a lot of injuries. He was drafted by a former coaching staff. I think there's a few issues. Getting Kirk, getting Zay Jones, Marvin Jones. Those are field stretchers now. Maybe they didn't see that he was going to be fully recovered from his injury and a nasty ankle injury. And with wide receivers, it's hard for them to recover from that. And I mean, they're never the same sometimes with some of them. So, I mean, look at Mike Thomas. He's still recovering from his ankle injury 2 years later, So it could be something like that we don't know about. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes with the wide receiver group. And unfortunately, I love Chark. I mean, I absolutely love cheering for him. So it was sad to see him go, but there's got to be reasons behind it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just to sort of add on that, basically what it boiled down to, at least from what I know, is it wasn't about the money necessarily. Now they weren't willing to come up to that 1 year, $10 million contract either. But it sort of boiled down to it was best for both parties to sort of part ways. I mean, they were changing the coaching staff. Chark, had already been grown frustrated with the franchise in general, as a lot of players have over the past few years. I think that it was best for him to get a fresh start. If he was going to take, lesser money than what he felt he was deserved, if he was going to take a 1 year prove it deal, he wanted to do it outside of Jacksonville. So he would have come back if they would have offered him a solid contract or a long-term deal, of course. But in the end, it was sort of a situation where, he's been productive in his past, but he's also had a lot of injuries, and he hasn't been productive consistently. So it was just a combination of everything, and they sort of parted ways.
Right on. Yep. I think we've settled that pretty well. So you said something about best for both parties. Just to throw it out there real quick, if you guys are watching this right now, in that bottom corner there next to Jesse, you can see a watermark down there that says subscribe on YouTube. Help us out with that. And then also patreon.com. That would help out both parties, our YouTube party and our Patreon party. Hey-o. Hey, who knows? You know what? We all meet up in Canton once a year in August as well at the Hall of Fame and the Fantasy Football Expo. So we get enough Patreons between now and then. We'll throw a party for the Patreons. How about that? We do still we're running short on time here, but we need to hit on this defense, because this defense, if I remember correctly, I think they were ranked like 27th, 28th overall last year. Yeah, 28th. I'm going to pass over the offensive line, even though there were some good upgrades there as well. But I know I need to get you guys out of here. But this ranked 28th last year overall defense, and they invested 5 draft picks, including the absolute beast of an edge rusher out of Georgia, Trayvon Walker. So you can tell that there's a real focus here from this new coaching staff on this defense. I got to hear how excited you guys are about this.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of, I guess, heading into the draft, there weren't that many options available for them to, hit on a guy who was going to come in and be a Hall of Fame player or anything like that. So Trayvon Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, those were the two guys that they were trying to go after. They've always been about, upgrading their defense, bringing in a guy like Mike Caldwell, who hasn't been a defensive coordinator yet, but he's coached under Todd Bowles. He's coached under plenty of amazing defensive coordinators in the past, defensive coaches. So they've really made an emphasis on that position, trading up for Devin Lloyd, signing the players that they did this offseason and last offseason, Shaq Griffin. Brayshawn Jenkins, players like that, Roy Robertson Harris. I think that they really made a pivotal switch in sort of their philosophy in terms of making sure that they were going to have a faster, hard hitting, defense that's going to turn the football over. Foye Oluwakin, I believe, led the league in turnovers a couple years ago. He's one of the more up and coming rising linebackers in the NFL right now. They got a lot out of Tyson Campbell last year as a rookie, near the end of that stretch. Basically, this defense is supposed to be a lot better than it was last year because of how much they've invested. I would, hold them to a bit of a higher standard even than the offense right now, even because they even if they have a guy in Doug Peterson who is an offensive coach, just how much they've invested into this defense, it just shows you that it should be looking to take their next jump here soon.
Yeah, I totally agree. You said they were 28th, and I can really see them cutting that in half of getting in top 14 pretty easily. I love the Devin Floyd pick going up and trading up for him. He's looking like he's the real deal. The Trayvon Walker, I mean, I can't say anything bad about him yet. I mean, when you see him in person and you see him doing just a basic drill, your jaw dropped. You're like, holy cow, this guy is massive. And he just hits things harder than you've ever seen, like dummies, cans, whatever it is, guys with pads, it doesn't matter. He destroys people. So it's nice to see that. And it's nice to see the defense turning it back around. We lived off that defense in 2017 when we actually made it very close to being in the Super Bowl. And it's good to kind of feel that again. The city kind of fed off of that. We were Jacksonville. We were cheering. We were chanting. We would go crazy when we got a pick or a sack or whatever. And it was because of the defense. It wasn't because of the offense. And it's kind of feeling like we're getting back to those times again. So it just feels good. Like you said earlier, right before the start of the show, right when we started, you're talking about that linebacker group. And there's one thing that you forgot, and speed kills. And that's what they have. They're going to be one of the fastest linebacking core. And that's all I keep hearing from the coaches that we're ever going to see. So I cannot wait to see it on the field on Sunday. When it happens, just look out. Week 1, Washington, we're coming.
Yep, there you are, right there.
Yeah.
And then week 2, like I said, I promise I'll keep my mouth shut. All right. Let's just say that you guys definitely got the best of us in the last one. All right. All right. So usually I wrap this up by asking one final question, and that is very simply, what would you deem to be a success of a season? And then on the inverse side, what would make you want to throw your jersey down the drain because you're just pissed off at the world because of the way that the season went? Anybody can go.
Yeah, I mean, if they come out and they're able to have a successful, let's say 7-win season, that's incredibly successful. I mean, obviously they're coming off of a 3-win season. They had a 1-win season the year before, so getting up to 7 to me is market success. And I think that moving forward, you'll sort of see the ebbs and flows of every game. And I think that as long as you see some progress throughout, then that'll be a successful season. Now, a bad season to me would be sort of almost a repeat of last year. A lot of confusion, a lot of adversity, a lot of times where people aren't on the same page. Just things aren't going in the right direction, and it doesn't necessarily mean a win or loss total. If they have less than 7, doesn't mean it's a bad season. I just think that it depends on the trajectory they're showing near the end of the year if they're going to have a bad or a good year. I think that that's really what it comes down to, just sort of the overall leadership and the direction they're headed.
Yeah, I agree. Vegas has us at 6.5 games over under. So I think I always go with the side with the over, obviously, with your home team. So 7's a good number for me as well. I don't expect huge strides. People, you start to drink the Kool-Aid real quick here in Jacksonville, and people start to want to get a Super Bowl. They want to get playoffs. They want more and more and more, just because we've had so less and so little for so many years. But you gotta build up to that. It's not like overnight thing here in the NFL. So 7 games is what I like. On the opposite end, I just can't deal with the injuries. We can't have a team depleted with injuries. Like you said, we can't look like we're a rookie team out there. I know we're young, but in the last few years, we've been even younger. So we can't come out looking like a young team. We can't make coaching mistakes that are silly. We can't make offensive line penalty, a lot of things that can start to derail very quickly in the first few weeks, especially starting with that week 1 going against Wentz in Washington, especially because it's my 40th birthday and especially because I'll be there. We got to start this thing off right and get this win right off of the bat, and that would make me very happy to start.
Outstanding. Hey, listen, I appreciate you guys so much. We're over what I expected to be. So, and that's usually just a sign of your guys' knowledge and abilities to understand your team. Like it's absolutely wild. There's no way that I would have been able to throw out nearly this much to the listeners. So you guys are helping us out greatly, like immensely. So really appreciate you guys. Real quick, don't forget to check out Demetrius. I've got his stuff right here. Check out his articles. Find him down there at the Twitter handle down there at the bottom. This is an audio, so y'all can read it. But thank you very much for your time. Jesse, don't forget to check out his up and coming. Is it an article, or because you've got so many of those, it's almost starting to seem like it might be a small book.
It's gonna be right now. Obviously, the people said I should have just made it into a big long thread, but I've just been putting a little piece together every day. I drop it. At the end, I'm going to type it all up. I've got it all written already out in a book and a little notebook over here. So I'll type it all up, put it on one. We'll talk about maybe posting it on your website, make it easier for everyone to read through. So I don't have to sit there and check back every 50 days that I've written this thing. So, but right now, how to be a great commish, follow it, like it, retweet it. Just helps out the community as a whole. It's not just for me, it's for everybody.
Right on. And watch for Demetrius on ESPN real soon.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you'll see. We'll see.
It won't take long. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks again, fellas. Thank you to all the viewers in the comment section. You guys are awesome, and you guys are actually the whole reason that we're even able to bring these guys on here to begin with. So, peace.